Okay, I'm going to make a quick update on my progress with French so far. It's been 30 days. I think this will be a pretty quick update. I don't think it'll be long, but so far I've been learning French for 90 days, doing Anki every day. So let's take a look at our statistics. So, after 90 days, I have 3,058 cards, which represents 1,770 notes. Each note basically represents a specific fact or word or grammar thing that I was trying to learn. That includes things like definite and indefinite articles, which may repeat, but I would say that the total notes is a rough approximate of the number of words, individual words I know, and that includes each conjugation of a verb might count as its own word, even though some people would not consider each one its own word. But yeah, so that's a lot of flashcards. Um, let's take a look at our statistics. So I did notice this month that my statistics went down, and I think I know why, and I'll explain that in a moment. But currently, my correct percentage is only 90.51%, which is actually still okay. Uh, Anki is all about trying to remember 90% of everything you study. And I'm actually remembering 90% of things that I haven't even studied yet. So in reality, I don't think the learning percentage actually matters that much, if at all, really. I'm not sure how relevant it is for anything. Um, and so there's that. My learning percentage, or my young percentage, I guess it's called, 97.22%, which is about half to 1% lower for this month than it was last month. And if you look for my year statistics, uh, my month statistics for this month are just slightly about 0.48% lower for the month than my global or my total amount of studying time has been. So yeah, like I said before, the trend for this month is that my percentages are a little bit lower in terms of accuracy, but not like a ton lower, just statistically lower, like a percentage. Same thing with my mature cards, 96.61% for the month, and this month is even more difficult because I'm starting to get cards I haven't seen for several months, whereas before it might only have been the last time I updated. I most of the cards that were mature that I was testing, the time between cards was only 3 weeks around there. So this month has actually been much harder in terms of mature cards because they're cards that I haven't seen for quite a long time, for several months. But my percentages are still holding strong, 96.61%. And in reality, the mature percentage is the most important because that's the stuff that's supposedly in your long-term memory. And if we look for my year average, it's 96.92. So again, roughly the same, 0.31% lower for the month than my global average. But considering that the mature cards are hypothetically much harder because I haven't seen them for much longer, at least for some of them, that's actually really good, I think. Nothing to be concerned about. I know it's not fun to see your percentages go down a little bit, but things are holding strong. And nothing really to worry about. Another quick thing I want to say is that last month I alluded to the plan that after I finish the Fluent Forever top 625 words list, I would transition to Sham's grammar guide. I think it's pronounced Sham, which has plenty of example sentences that explain various grammatical concepts so that and that my plan was I was going to work my way through that so that I would have a foundation in the grammar before moving on to sentence mining Harry Potter. Well, that plan changed a little bit. My I lasted 2 weeks going through that grammar book. It was okay. The sentences, though, I found they were hard to remember because they were often very simple to demonstrate these concepts, like um, something like j'ai beaucoup de livres, for example. J'ai beaucoup de livres. I hope that's right. That was actually one of the sentences I kept on messing up. When do you use de versus de? De versus de. I think the rule was that if you have a word before, like j'ai beaucoup, you would want to do de, but if it's j'ai des livres intéressants, there you'd use des because you don't have anything between the j'ai and the noun livre. Like, I don't know, some kind of the thing that the action is referencing. Um, and so a lot of sentences were like that, and they were actually pretty hard to remember because they kind of started to blur together after a while, and I found them just very tough. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that they were the wrong thing to study, but my general rule is that if the cards seem hard to remember and are really frustrating to try and learn, generally it's probably a bad card. Not always, because sometimes it might be a grammatical concept I just having a tough time remembering, but generally the tougher the individual card is, the more likely it's a bad card. Because it's more in the aggregate that sometimes things might be difficult of remembering just the sheer amount of information, all 1770 bits of information. But each individual card should actually be easy, generally speaking. Otherwise, it's probably a bad card. So, like I said, I lasted 2 weeks. I learned some good stuff about definite, indefinite articles, um, and other things like that. Prepositions, I think. Or maybe I didn't quite get to prepositions, but I did something. I did a couple of chapters from the book, but I ended up deciding that I was actually not learning things quick enough because the main thing that's been holding me back is vocabulary, not really grammar. I just need to learn a lot more words, probably double the amount of words I know. And so I figure, you know what? I just I should probably just go back to learning vocabulary. But since I'm done the 625 word list, what do I do? So, well, when you Google frequency dictionary for French, this is a PDF that comes up. This is actually what the Routledge frequency dictionary is based on. This work. I'm not actually sure the legality of this. It seems to imply that this particular dictionary was released free, but then also later published for money by Routledge. I'm not really sure what the deal is, but as far as I can tell, this is a free, open frequency dictionary. The idea here is that I'm just going to start from number one and work my way through the list. So basically the way a frequency dictionary works is that the words that are at the beginning show up a ton. Probably the first word is, I think, le. Let's take a look. First word, and you can Google this. If you Google frequency dictionary, this will come up. Yeah, the first word is le. Now, I didn't have to learn that word because I already knew it in several of my sentences. So what I did actually is I kind of prepared the list before I actually started making cards. I just went through, I kept on going through it. De, un, à, être, est, on, avoir, que, pour, etc. until I got to a word that I didn't recognize or I was pretty sure wasn't in a flashcard. And when I did that, I took the sentence, like for example, je ne déteste pas cet homme. I would take that sentence and make a flashcard out of it in the same way that I was before. So see my previous videos, 60 days and 30 days progress, to see how I make those flashcards. And do the exact same thing. So if allegedly I didn't know the word se, although this particular sentence, I don't know why. Oh, I guess they're taking set, like CET, as the same kind of word as se. It's like a different form, which I don't know. I necessarily agree. I guess that makes sense. But yeah, so then I would make two flashcards. One where you have to fill in the blank, je ne teste pas cet homme, and then just the word se, C-E-T, or C-E, I guess in this case. And I have to come up with a sentence either on my own or the whole sentence. Je ne teste pas cet homme. Um, and that's good. I think these sentences are in general harder than the example sentences on lingy.com, or however that is pronounced, because they're actually from real French. And also, I don't have any kind of story context at all for any of these sentences. So, for example, je ne déteste pas cet homme. I'm sure it could come from a movie script or a book or someone talking. One thing I like about this frequency dictionary is that it comes from movie subtitles, comes from movie dialogue, conversations, speeches, books, newspapers. So it's a huge, wide selection of different material. So it's relatively all-encompassing and it's not biased towards any particular source. So, for example, if I made a frequency dictionary out of Harry Potter, baguette might be, or Achi might be biased towards the top, or words for spells and stuff, Expelliarmus and stuff. But because it's based on a variety of sources, a variety of media, it seems like a pretty good list. But yeah, these sentences, they're good because they're real French. They're actually what people say and write. But maybe because that, as a result, there's a lot of idioms and specific ways of sentence structure that I just have never seen before. The sentences on lingy.com tend to be very simple, very almost all the same structure. And so they're actually really easy to remember because of that structure is very simple. But the whole point of learning French is to learn things that you don't know, and learning new sentences with interesting structure is part of the process. But yeah, so I've just been going through it. One surprising thing is that even though I covered all 625 words from Gabriel Weiner's list and had example sentences for each one and learned all the words in those sentences in addition, and I have, like I said, approximately 1,700 words that I know, more or less, to various degrees. Oops. I actually only knew 400 of the top 1,000 words in French, which I thought was surprising. But then I realized as I was going through that a lot of these words are actually pretty hard to remember because and learn because they all are transition words or grammary words like si, for example. I think I already had a sentence, but aujourd'hui notre économie va si mal. So si has many different usages in French, for example, but there's no way to visualize C. You just have to learn it. Or what's another good one? If we keep on going through, mem also is used in a million different ways, apparently. Il ne s'excuse même pas. Hope that was pronounced right. Il ne s'excuse pas même pas. Um, or celui actually is pretty easy to remember. Tu es celui que je respecte le plus. Um, But yeah, so a lot of these, and then a lot of these sentences might be way too advanced actually for me, but I still learn them the best I can because I figure even if I don't really intuitively understand the sentence, if I know all the words and have a gist understanding of it, eventually, over time, the more I review the card and the more I learn other French, the sentence will eventually sink in. Just like there are some sentences that used to be really complicated. There was one sentence, il faut être capable de dire oui aussi bien que non. So that sentence, it's necessary to be able or capable to say yes as well as no. Um, I think the idea of il faut, that pattern, il faut grimper au haut de la montagne. That's another sentence. That il faut pattern. I feel like it's fairly intuitive now. I understand it. But it took me a long time to reviewing that sentence, even if I had it completely memorized. It took me a while for my brain to actually let it sink in. That's probably inefficient. The people who are really into the input hypothesis might disagree with the idea of trying to learn that sentence, but I learned a bunch of good words in it, and now it's in my memory. And I think I have it relatively internalized, that grammar structure. But yeah, so if you keep on going through it, there's a lot of the verbs as well are kind of hard to remember. This is a tough sentence. Je m'y rendis à 4 heures du matin. So rendre means to render, return, yield, and give up. So this sentence though uses it kind of interestingly. It says, "Well, I went there at 4 o'clock in the morning," but more direct translation, I returned myself there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Is really kind of what it says, which is not something that's very idiomatic to French, I assume. It's not something you would say in English in that way. If you roughly translated it, I went there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you want to translate that English into French, you'd probably think venir, for example. Je viens à 4 heures. No, I guess it would be je m'y viens à 4 heures du matin. Something like that, du matin. But they're using rendu, which is interesting. I don't know how common that is, but I'm sure it's a common enough expression. And so that's pretty hard to remember, these like idiomatic ways of using these verbs that I just don't know. But I think it's been useful. And yeah, so I would say I'm roughly So again, contre, sous, côté, ensemble, chose, enfant, all really like super common words. And so I'm actually really glad I'm going through this list. Like I said, I think I'm roughly up to about in the 200s because again, I'm going through, even though obviously I know more than 200 words, I'm just kind of filling in the cracks now. I'm just trying to make sure I find all the common words so that if I ever hear it in from watching a TV show or reading a book, I'll be ready. And even if I don't fully understand it yet, just through flashcards, by reading a book or watching TV, that's what's going to make it permanent and become part of my memory. So my current plan, right? So right now, my study plan is 30 to 45 minutes, or however long my flashcards take to review per day. That's really important because even though I'm not going to learn the language entirely through the flashcards, I think they're very good at getting these words into my brain in an efficient way. Although it feels very slow compared to other methods, which I'll share in a second. But yeah, so my one part of my day is 30 to 45 minutes of flashcard review. That's very important. I think it's efficient. It's been working well so far. And then the other half is reading a little bit every day from a book, a French book. I got multiple books from the library. I got one that's a pun on The Beauty and the Beast, La Belle et la Bête, but it's about like a poker game bet. Got another one called, what's it called? Um, it's called Marilou Polaire. Marilou Polaire. Marilou Polaire. I've never actually pronounced it. I don't know. It's kind of like a Tom Sawyer like character, but she's a girl and trying to get out of her chores. So it's kind of an elementary level book. I finished actually the graphic novel Souris, which is based, I guess, on a English graphic novel called Smile. But I really enjoyed it. It was pretty easy to read, but it was also like very stimulating because I saw a lot of French usage I'd never seen before, and it was kind of fun to read. I've also been reading Harry Potter, of course. I'm about a third of the way through the book actually, and it's actually pretty fun to read because I know the story so well. I actually have been learning a lot about French just from reading it. Plenty of words that are in my passive vocabulary that I'd never even studied with Anki, but I can recognize in context. I may not be able to use them, but I definitely can recognize them, which I think is a big part of reading. So much we'll read we'll never be able to say, but we can at least understand what they're talking about. And so I've been doing that a little bit every day. And then the more fun one is I've been watching the TV show Riverdale. I think I mentioned that last month. It's getting way better. My understanding of what they're saying, I'm not sure if it's because I'm learning more vocabulary, and that's what's improving my ability to hear it, or just from listening alone, I've been able to understand more and more. I'm not sure, but I don't know what percentage I can understand. I can definitely follow the story very easily, no problem. I don't understand everything they say, but I can definitely follow the story, no problem. Uh, and yeah, lots of like phrases. It's really exciting when I hear a sentence and I understand it exactly what they're saying, and I can process it in real time. It's really quite thrilling. It doesn't happen very often, but they'll say something other than like individual words. If they say like bonjour or salut, of course I'll understand that right away. But they'll say like a whole sentence and I've heard that many times from them so far. Uh, I it's great. Like if I understand it exactly and it's in real time, I don't have to stop and think about what they just said. It's really cool, and yeah, that's much more fun than reading actually because your brain, I think, just subconsciously skips over the words you don't know, and you just focus on the stuff you do know, and you're watching a fun story at the same time. Reading, it's like very you have to have a lot of humility because even reading a book for like elementary kids, there's a lot of words you don't know because you haven't been exposed to it. But it's so interesting. You'll be if you just keep on pushing forward. I don't really look up words all that much. Sometimes if I see a word many times and I'm like, what is that word that they keep on saying? Or if I don't understand a whole paragraph and I just need to know what a couple of the verbs or the nouns are, I might look those up. But in general, with my reading practice and my listening practice, I don't look up anything up. I learn it purely through context, or once in a while I'll look up a word. And honestly, it's kind of incredible. I think I'm actually learning in a way faster than just the flashcards. I think the flashcards have definitely helped make that way easier, which leads me to my final, I guess, plan basically. So my plan is to keep on doing the flashcards, going through this dictionary that I just mentioned, this frequency dictionary, until I hit about 3,000. Because what I noticed when you hit 3,000 words, for one thing, that's what people say, things get much easier in terms of comprehension and fluency. But if you keep on going, I'll show you some of the words that are in the top 3,000. And I notice is that they may be common statistically, but not actually common in reality. Like for example, well, actually a lot of these I already know, but facture I know actually, but luxe, I mean I know, I guess from like because it's close to English, but maybe these are some bad examples. I mean these are pretty common words actually. Dispenser, copain, aligner. But maybe if we jump ahead even more, assortir. I mean, I guess these are pretty common words. But anyways, my this is a bad way of showing my point, but my point was I think I'm going to shoot for 3,000. My goal is to hit 3,000, and at that point, I think I'm not going to use the frequency dictionary anymore and just sentence mine sentences from the books that I'm reading. So pick a book I'm reading and just start brute forcing it. Go from every single word. I don't know it, then I'll make a flashcard out of it, um, and see what happens. Because after, like I said, after that, like I'll be learning so many words just from context and just from watching and reading that in a way, after a while, it may not be even necessary to do flashcards. We'll see, but definitely not until I hit 3,000 because that's a generally a good cutoff point for like B2 level, allegedly. Um, and hopefully after that, I can just get by just reading a lot and listening a lot. But if I feel like I need more flashcards or if it's still helpful, I'll keep on doing it. But to be honest, I find the flashcards very motivating and fun because whether or not I feel like watching an episode of Riverdale or reading a couple pages or a chapter from a book, I always have the flashcards and I always have to do them. And it always kind of keeps me accountable and it keeps me coming back to French and never like skipping a day. Because I haven't skipped a day in 90 days, which is great. It's actually really good. Um, and yeah, like I said, I think ultimately the immersion in listening to audiobooks has also been great. I listened to the audiobook for Harry Potter, which was like a fire hose to my brain initially, but over time just got easier and easier. And it's still very hard to understand, but I can follow the story generally. I mean, sometimes there'll be like a minute or two I might get lost, but then get right back into the story because, again, I know the story already, so I can kind of figure out the context and what they're talking about in general. But that definitely improved my listening comprehension. And again, like I said, Riverdale, Tintin, has also been fun. Watching a couple movies on Netflix as well. Um, has also been good. Netflix is amazing for French language learning because there's so many there's so many movies and TV shows in French, especially TV shows. Like if you can just find a TV show you like, there's like often like seasons upon seasons of French material you can absorb and learn from. So Netflix is great. Um, but yeah, long story short, I think I'm pretty much done. But that's my formula basically. Flashcards for 30 minutes, watch an episode of a TV show every day, and then just do that for another year, I guess, and then I'll be fluent, I suppose. But oh, one last thing I'll show you before I go is I want to show you my shadowing that I've been doing a little bit. I haven't been doing it very consistently or anything like that, but what I did was I uh, what I did was I I went sentence by sentence or section by section of Harry Potter of the audiobook and cut out each individual sentences and made them into flashcards themselves. And then the idea was that I would try practice saying them at the same time, which at the beginning was ridiculously fast. But after a while, it kind of trains your mouth to move in efficient ways that you have to do to be able to pronounce it. And also kind of just forces you in a way to say the things correctly. Just try by trying to match it in the like by shadowing. It seems to really help. It really helped my pronunciation. Again, my pronunciation is not good by any stretch because I haven't actually practiced talking that much, especially compared to everything else, listening and reading and studying and stuff like that. But I can show you. So here's a sentence. Les Dursley avaient tout ce qu'ils voulaient La seule chose indésirable qu'il possédait était un secret dont il craignait plus que tout qu'on le découvre un jour. So that was pretty bad, but I haven't practiced these couple sentences that much. But here's the actual audio.
Les Dursley avaient tout ce qu'ils voulaient. La seule chose indésirable qu'ils possédaient, c'était un secret dont ils craignaient plus que tout qu'on le découvre un jour.
So yeah, so I'll just kind of practice saying it along. Maybe I'll find a sentence that I know pretty well. Not this one.
Si jamais quiconque venait à entendre.
No, there's another one.
C'était un homme grand et massif qui n'avait. Madame Potter était la sœur de Madame. Il n'avait pas de temps à perdre avec des sournettes. Les Dursley avaient un petit garçon.
Okay, here's a good one. So, jamais quiconque n'aurait imaginé qu'il puisse se trouver impliqué dans quoi que ce soit d'étrange ou de mystérieux. So that one I know pretty well. Let's hear it.
Jamais quiconque n'aurait imaginé qu'il puisse se trouver impliqué dans quoi que ce soit d'étrange ou de mystérieux.
Alright, so let's see if I can do it.
Jamais quiconque n'aurait imaginé qu'il puisse se trouver impliqué dans quoi que ce soit d'étrange ou de mystérieux.
Alright, here we go. Jamais quiconque n'aurait imaginé qu'il puisse se trouver impliqué dans quoi que ce soit d'étrange ou de mystérieux. That was pretty close. Again, not perfect, but it's pretty hard to like match the exact cadence that they talk at. But it does really work. It does really kind of help you, like force you to keep the pace, to do the connections between words appropriately that I haven't been doing, and just really kind of force you to move your mouth in a French way. So I did that. Like I haven't been taking it very seriously, and obviously I have about something like 10 sentences, taken audio out and stuff. But I practice it sometimes, but it's not something I've been really focusing on. But eventually, when I get better, I'll probably focus more on pronunciation. I want to make sure I have the roughly accurate pronunciation, but even if I have technically an understanding of how it should sound, you do actually have to physically practice producing the sounds like quickly and effectively and without mistakes. And as long as I'm doing them right, more or less, and hearing the sounds, that's all I'm going to do really for now. And then eventually, when I practice speaking more, I'll practice reproducing the sounds more fluently and more consistently. But yeah, so that's my story so far. Uh, that's my studying for 90 days, and I will update again in another 30 days for my 120 day update. Thank you, and good night.